You know, I took some of this hard science, but then I tried to take a plot that was intriguing and compelling to me and that was near to my heart in a way. So it's there's a really unusual duo in this story, a buddy story I hadn't read before and intrigued me. It's an investigative reporter in San Francisco and his grandmother who has dementia, and severe dementia, and she knows a terrible secret about the world, but because of her condition, she doesn't know what the secret is or even that she knows it. And as a conspiracy begins to befall the family, our intrepid reporter realizes he's got to get this secret out of Grandma's head. Now, that's dear to me or near to me on a couple of levels. I'm close to my grandparents, my paternal grandmother in particular, although she does not have dementia in any way. But at the same time, I've been watching what's happening to our society, seeing in my own life, dealing with people who are suffering memory loss, and I wanted to touch on that. So to your question, I balance that with a conspiracy that has to do with how heavy technology use affects our behavior and our brains. I don't want to give too much away, but I'm hoping when people get to the end, they'll find it worth the journey. Yeah, you know, there's some really interesting science about how heavy technology use affects us, and I can get into that. But also, you know, in the thriller Devil's Plaything, I've tried to sort of have some fun with it and make it suspenseful, and some of that stuff, you know, could be happening, or it could be more of a Hollywood plot. The prickles are that this stuff has addictive properties. I mean, the scientists will say, and you probably know the feeling when the phone buzzes or rings, you not only want to respond to it, but you get a little adrenaline burst, a little hit, if you will. They call it the scientists call it a dopamine squirt. And so you get accustomed to getting a constant little input from your device. You get accustomed, and then in its absence, you feel bored, so you seek it out. That is an addictive cycle, and I think many of us can relate to it. So that's one thing to keep an eye out for. Another thing to keep an eye out for is you sort of think that when you're doing more than one thing at a time, looking at your device and sitting at your computer, that maybe you're getting more done. But in fact, there's a myth of multitasking. You're getting less done because your attention span is divided. So on a basic level, those two are two things to keep an eye out for. There are some neuroscientists that are looking at how the brain gets stimulated for older folks who are using technology, and they say it can engage those folks. It can also cut both ways. It seems that when we're constantly using our devices, remember that adrenaline burst I talked about? If you get enough adrenaline burst, it has an effect on a neurochemical called cortisol. It builds it up, and cortisol can kill cells in the hippocampus, which is a memory center of the brain. Now, I'm getting close to starting to give stuff away about the plot, but suffice it to say, Mari, this stuff can actually cut both ways. I also want to say, generally speaking, there's clearly, thank you for this insight, Matt, as I speak about myself in the third person, there's tremendous upside to technology. I couldn't have written a book without it, or it would have taken me 700 years on a stone tablet. You know, I couldn't Skype my own grandmother, and she couldn't be Skyping me and her great-grandchildren. We couldn't be doing interviews like this and broadcasting them. So, you know, I don't want to be dismissive of it. I just want to suggest that there are side effects maybe that we haven't thought about with regard to this sea change of technology that is on par with the Industrial Revolution. Our lives are changing enormously.